what I really love about the Maids and about our business is that it provides a tremendous opportunity for people who are able to step into kind of leadership roles that have never had that opportunity. So we have refugees, we have immigrants, we have single mothers, we have employees from, I don't know, maybe 30 nations or something like that, and like 4 languages and several dialects. And it's a real challenge, but we tried to figure out how could we kind of do some jujitsu and turn the challenge into a strength.
You work hard in your business. On the Profit by Design podcast, we ask the big question: what has your business done for you lately? Hi, I'm Dr. Sabrina Starling, the business psychologist, the author of How to Hire the Best, and your co-host on the Profit by Design podcast. Weekly, my co-host, Mike Bruno, and I bring you tips, tools, and strategies from our own experiences and from the experiences of our guests, who are entrepreneurial thought leaders and real-life entrepreneurs, all to support you in making intentionally profitable and sustainable business decisions to live the lifestyle you desire. At Tap the Potential, we know you're longing to be freed from the constant demands of your business. You need a business that supports your life. And the problem is your business is taking over your life, leaving you frustrated and discouraged. We get it. At Tap the Potential, we believe work supports life, not the other way around. We understand you're paying a team, and most likely you're still having to do it all. There should be accountability. It should not be this hard, which is why, through our proprietary coaching system, we help thousands of business owners like you have more time for what's important to them and grow profit by 300 to 800%. Here's how we do it. Start by taking our assessment at tapthepotential.com/assessment. You'll get an overview of your current quality of life as it relates to your business and next steps needed in your business to improve your quality of life while strengthening your business. Next, meet with our success team lead to debrief your results. Then, join our Better Business, Better Life program. By the end of your first year with us, you will have more time for what matters to you and more money in your bank account than you've ever had before. So, if you're ready to take your life back, the next step is to take our assessment at tapthepotential.com/assessment. Profit Designers, today I'm bringing you a conversation with John Hanson. I've had the privilege of knowing John for the last 4 or 5 years, and we connected around the launch of my very first book in the How to Hire the Best series, the Rural Business Owner's Ultimate Guide to Attracting Top Performing Team Members. I've had the privilege of supporting John and his team as they have attracted A players to their team and really built a phenomenal culture. And today, John is here to share his story with you. And I believe you'll be very inspired hearing what he's up to in his life now that the business no longer depends on him. John Hanson is the owner of the Maids franchise in Kansas City. He is married to Deanna and has 4 children, Ashlyn, Joshua, Caleb, and Jonathan. He is an active member of Faith Community Church. Prior to co-founding the Maids of Kansas City with his parents in 2003, John Hanson was a regional sales manager for Western Wireless, a precursor to T-Mobile. He graduated Summa Cum Laude from Park University with degrees in finance and accounting. The Maids of Kansas City grew rapidly from the outset and achieved $1 million in revenue in its 3rd year. It is currently one of the largest single-location residential cleaning companies in the country. John's focus in building the business over the past 17 years has been creating a culture of empowerment that allows members of the organization to grow and develop their leadership potential. He has brought together a richly diverse group of men and women who speak 4 languages, are from 4 continents, and over a dozen countries. Nothing brings John greater joy than seeing his people overcome the unique challenges of a business where hourly employees work together on small 4-person teams working independently throughout the city. In 2016, John retired from day-to-day operations at the Maids to focus using his experience to support the entrepreneurial community, both in Kansas City and internationally. So with that, let's join our conversation with John. Profit designers, at Tap the Potential, we are on a mission right now to be a positive force in social media during trying times for all of us entrepreneurs. In that regard, I would love it if you could help us out. We really want to get behind any of you who are doing good things in your communities, showing up and leading with love. If you are doing something to keep your team together during this time and you're sharing it in social media, or you come across another entrepreneur who is being a gift from their gift in some way that you notice, please use the hashtags Lead with Love and Be a Gift. Our team at Tap the Potential is on the lookout in social media for those hashtags, and we will be reposting those social media posts from the Tap the Potential social media. Let's all lead with love, be a gift, and shine bright during these trying times. So John, welcome to the Profit by Design podcast.
Thank you very much. I'm really excited. I've been looking forward to it.
Yeah, I'm excited to get to bring you on at this point in your journey because you and I don't know if you remember this, I remember it very well. You and I connected around the time that I released the first How to Hire the Best book, and that was the Rural Business Owner's Ultimate Guide to Attracting Top Performing Employees. And you were one of those business owners who reached out, and I thought in the back of my head, my gremlin was, but John's not in a rural area. I don't know if I can really help him.
I think I said that. Would you still be willing to work with me? Because I'm in the middle of Kansas City. I'm not rural. And you said, I think I can help you.
I remember in the back of my head going, I don't know, but if this works in a rural area, I mean, he's in Kansas City. Like, what could go wrong? This surely could help him. So what was eye-opening for me about that at that time is that it gave me a bigger perspective that hiring challenges aren't just specific to business owners in small towns and rural areas, which was my focus and specialty for a long time. But hiring challenges are there for all entrepreneurs, regardless of geographic location, regardless of the size of the company. Your company at the time that you were reaching out was fairly large in relation to most small businesses and very successful. And it was something that you identified, like, this is holding us back. We have to solve this problem.
Yeah, there's a dual edge to low unemployment. So it's a wonderful thing. It tends to drive wages up. It gives people opportunities that, they don't have in more challenging labor markets. But it is hard for small business owners to get to a point where you raise it in a way that you still maintain the profit and you're able to pay people more. And so that was kind of what I needed help with, was kind of the thinking through strategically how to operationalize that.
Yes. And the other point that I want to make about your business is at the point that you came to me and we went through an analysis of your business to see what the real needs were. Because I never just assume it's hiring, because hiring sometimes can be a symptom of other things. And as we were going through the analysis of your business, you had key performance indicators in place already. So that means when you have key performance indicators in place already, you have that ability to be out of the business, to have team running the business. But you couldn't do that because you didn't have the team that you needed. But you were tracking things like Net Promoter Score. You were tracking all kinds of numbers in the business that let you know capacity. And you had a clear handle on, we have a capacity issue. We need more people. And so that you were very far along. And not every business that comes to us at Tap the Potential is that far along. And so hiring challenges can happen at any phase of the business. And the other thing that I remember that really stood out to me as we started talking to your A-player team members is that there was a story about the Maids of Kansas City that you guys weren't putting out there to attract A players. You were hiring, you were running ads, but there was a bigger picture story about who you are as a business owner, your values, what got you excited about the opportunities you were creating for the team who came to work at the Maids. And that wasn't out there. So can you speak some about that larger story and what you discovered for yourself in that process of figuring out how are we going to attract these A players?
Yeah. What I really love about the Maids and about our business is that it provides a tremendous opportunity for people who are able to step into kind of leadership roles that have never had that opportunity. So we have refugees, we have immigrants, we have single mothers, we have employees from, I don't know, maybe 30 nations or something like that, and like 4 languages and several dialects. And it's a real challenge, but we tried to figure out how could we kind of do some jujitsu and turn the challenge into strength. And so what we found was, and I still to this day love seeing a person come in and, learn how to be a team member. And then all of a sudden they're an assistant team leader and they're responsible for all the supplies and making sure that everything is organized in the vehicles and, disinfecting stuff between houses and all that kind of stuff. And they get this little bit of responsibility and you could just see their demeanor change. And then they get promoted to a team leader and, they're carrying around the weight of getting 4 to 5 houses cleaned a day. I mean, these are big houses with a lot of expensive things. The team leader has to, get into the house, clean the house, make sure it's perfect, make sure everything is the way it was without, the dirt being there anymore, but everything else is the way it was. And then they secure the house and leave. And there's nobody standing over their shoulder to make sure that gets done. And so we work on teams of 3 to 4. And so it's really neat to see people have that opportunity to grow into that leadership role. And then struggling with communication skills and how do I develop the next people and how do I even communicate with them because we don't speak the same language. And so there's a lot of opportunities for us there are a lot of challenges that also we learned a lot and we've had a lot of people that have grown in their leadership capabilities. And I love that.
So yes, that larger story is that you were passionate about giving people an opportunity in life. And these are people who previously have not had opportunities. They really, when we would look, we would say they have all the cards stacked against them. The deck is stacked against them. And when they come to work at the Maids, you guys are teaching them how to be responsible. You're hiring A players, people who want to be responsible, but they don't necessarily have the skills and even know what that means. And so you're teaching that from the ground up and adding in. What you're noticing is that when you give them a little bit of responsibility, they stand up taller and straighter. The pride really comes through and it just grows from there because they want more. And then you give them a little more. And the way you've set your teams up, there's a lot of support and safety for growth to happen in a safe, supported way. So maybe speak to that some about how you've managed to do that.
Well, one of the tools that we've used is Strength Finder, strength-based leadership. We have made sure that each of our team leaders have taken that. If I back up for a minute, I have an amazing vice president of operations who started at the Maids as a maid. She didn't speak English. Now she runs the whole operations and she can translate. She's just an amazing woman. You worked with her. And that's part of the story. I realized that my strengths are learner input, context, individualization, and ideation. So I don't have any implementation. And so what I recognized was I could help Araceli grow as a leader by hiring her coaches. And so she's had a few coaches, and then we've had some of her coaches. She came to me and said, I've learned a tremendous amount about managing my time and leading people, but we need to help our team leaders grow in this. And so then we started having different coaches meet with team leaders and go through things like 1-minute manager and how do you deal with conflict. And, it was really interesting to see these team leaders who started as maids, started as house cleaners, and they learned some leadership lessons about dealing with cross-cultural communication, with just how to deal with conflict, how to give feedback. Feedback was a great one, like doing the just the feedback sandwich, a good thing and the thing that you want to have them help improve on, and then more positive feedback.
So in Araceli, I got to work with her in the capacity. She came through Leadership Boot Camp, and she also went on and did our coach approach. And that's something else that has really stood out to me about the culture that you have built with Araceli at the Maids, is that the coach approach is part of how you guys communicate with each other. It's just in the culture. And so I would love to hear you speak about, what does it look like to take a coach approach as a team? What do you see going on?
Well, what I noticed with Araceli when she took that, she started recognizing that she could coach our field managers. And then that next level, kind of the tricky level, was teaching those or coaching those field managers how to coach team leaders, and then how to try to coach team leaders to even coach their team members. And that's where the magic really starts to happen. Because it's one thing to learn how to coach others. It's another thing to learn how to help people coach other people how to coach. And that's what was neat.
Yeah. And so now that's just a part of what's in the culture.
Yeah.
And it's kind of like this big boulder that you have to push up the mountain, because you have to so if you learn coaching skills, then you need somebody else who's a key team member to learn coaching skills. So you guys can communicate in that way. And then other team members observe it and benefit from that style of communication. So it piques their curiosity. And it's that tipping point once you get the boulder at the top of the mountain, and more people are benefiting from that kind of communication. And then they get curious about, I want to communicate in this way. It feels so good to be talked to in this way. I would love to learn how to speak to others in this way. And that's that tipping point where other people in the organization start to adopt it, and it really becomes like the boulder just rolls down the mountain, and it's much easier. And I can just sense, even as we're talking about it now, it's hard for you to reflect back on when that wasn't in the culture, because it's just so much a part of how things are now.
Yeah. I really love Jim Collins' illustration about that with the flywheel.
Yes.
So he talks about a flywheel where it takes a tremendous amount of energy to push that thing around the first time. But if you can get the culture and you push on it and you deal with the small things and you don't let things go, it starts to revolve around. And pretty soon it's moving so fast on its own that if you stick your hand in there, it'll break your hand off. And so that's what we've tried to accomplish. And I love the boulder illustration as well, because, you get that thing pushing and it takes a tremendous amount of energy. But once it gets moving, don't go stand on the other side of it. It's rolling down that hill.
It's powerful. Yeah. And so one of the other pieces of this is you're very intentional about having A players on the team. And you've put hiring practices in place that attract A players. And I know in working with you a couple of years ago, it was really hard when you had to let someone go. And you and Araceli would look at, they're not an A player and we can't keep them on the team. Those were some hard conversations. So I wonder if you would share how you define an A player on your team, and what are some of the ways that you guys are determining if someone is not an A player? What are you looking at?
So both Araceli and I both have individualization as one of our strengths. And so we can see that different people bring different strengths to the picture. And it's really hard for us because a lot of our employees have consistency and they want us to treat everybody the same. They want us to treat everybody. They think by treating them the same, that's what's fair. And it doesn't always work that way. Sometimes we have to, especially in an environment where the job market is so tight, we really have to work with people and coach them. And so the number one thing that makes a difference for us is attitude. It's, are you interested in working here? Is it more than a job for you? Do you care about the people? And are you willing to be coachable? And so it's not necessarily based on skills. It's more based on, are you coachable? Do you have a great attitude? Are you willing to do the best you can? And that's what's important. So
how do you determine if someone's coachable? What are you looking at?
Gosh, I don't know. These are probably better questions for Araceli, but I think it's that they're willing to learn. They're willing to say, yes, I know that when I come in the morning, I'm cranky. And thank you for being patient with me. I'm trying to get better at it. We have, people who struggle with that. They struggle with controlling their emotions. And we could just say, hey, the first time that you lose your patience with your team or with us, or you're giving, you get frustrated, you're gone. No. When things cool down, are you willing to sit down? Are you willing to have a conversation about it and learn some strategies to try to deal with that and cope with that? And that's what I think has been critical for us, is not just cutting people off, but helping them grow.
There's a couple of really interesting points in what you've just shared. So you're very sensitive to the life circumstances of your team members and being aware that they may have been in traumatic circumstances, which would contribute to their difficulty controlling emotions. They may have never been taught how to deal with emotions. Some of them are in living situations that are not conducive to showing up to work clean. And I remember a conversation had one time about body odor, and how do you have a difficult conversation with someone on your team who's having bad body odor. And so what you're sharing here is that you guys are you're willing to have these difficult conversations with team members to support them in growing. And they also need to be willing to receive the feedback and grow from it.
Yeah, we've had some really challenging conversations because in the United States, we have a different take on some of the ways that we do I don't know how to explain it, but there's a difference in the way people cook. There's a difference in, whether you wear deodorant or things like that when people are coming into the country from another country, they maybe haven't been taught about these things. And, it's like we're in customers' homes, we're in their bathrooms and things like that. And, it's hard to have those conversations. I mean, it is really hard to have those kind of conversations. But we had to look at it as, we're doing you a favor, because no matter what, whether you're here working at the Maids or you're working somewhere else, this is going to help you be more successful in the culture that you're in.
Right.
And I imagine that if I were to move to France, there's a lot of things that I would need to learn about the culture in France. And I would hope that people wouldn't just say, talk about me behind my back, but they would, and then just not deal with me, but they would actually lovingly confront me and say, hey, here's a couple things you're doing that are not part of the culture in France, and you need to be more careful. And this will help you be successful.
Yes. And I think that's a really important consideration. When we're in the United States, we just tend to think everyone operates the way we do and they run their lives the way we do. And there's lots of cultural differences around hygiene, around cooking. Some cultures cook with a lot of spices, a lot of garlic. Homes that don't have ventilation. And so, it gets in the clothes. And if you're not washing your clothes regularly, the odor, it's just different. It's very, very different. And so you have been very sensitive to that at the Maids in growing your team that way. And the other thing that you've done as part of using How to Hire the Best strategy is you've done really good networking in the communities that you hire from to attract more A players from those communities. So I wonder if you would share some about how that has played out for you and what that really looks like.
Yeah, we had a really interesting situation where we had hired a refugee from Africa, and she spoke French. None of us spoke French. I still to this day have no idea how we got past the first couple weeks. What happened was one of our team leaders adopted her onto her team, and they fell in love with one another in many ways. I mean, she took her in and treated her like a member of the team. And she's one of our top employees today. And so we said, how can we do this more? And so we went to different refugee resettlement organizations within Kansas City, and we just started developing relationships with them and said, hey, we are willing to work. We are willing to do whatever we can to bring great people into our organization and help us. And, we have to this day, I think, 8 or 9 employees from different countries in Africa, and they all speak different dialects. So that's a challenge. Whenever we have a monthly meeting, we have to translate everything into English, Spanish, and Swahili. And even the Swahili, is kind of like a trade language. And so many of them, that's still their second language. And so we've really had to learn how to do this cross-culture thing. And it's hard work, but it's very rewarding.
So that piece there is you've had to learn, you've had to grow as part of finding the A players that you want. And so when we started looking at where the A players on your team came from, this is what we identified, is that it was people who really appreciated the second chance, the opportunity that you were providing. And that meant that you were going to have to be more intentional about recruiting from those groups of people, which speaks to what you're just describing here. We've had to learn and grow. We've had to figure out when someone can't speak English, how we're going to communicate with them. And what you shared about the team member who spoke only French and no one else on the team spoke French, and then she came onto a team where she was loved and nurtured, speaks to what I talk about and how to hire the best, about above and beyond. The most important thing we can do is we bring people onto our teams. It's not about the training we deliver. It's about making them feel safe and supported. When we do that, that transcends language.
Yeah, it's really neat. It's fascinating to watch how barriers I think the biggest thing that we need to learn in today's environment, especially with all of the confirmation bias from our social media networks and all the bubbles that we put ourselves in, we need to learn how to understand people that are different from us. And we need to listen to them, and we need to love them for who they are and not just think, hey, you're different from me, and so you're scary. And it's not true. You know, God made people in every different background and culture and everything, different experiences. And we can really learn from one another. And I'm so glad that there are not more. I'm glad that everybody isn't just like me, because first of all, nothing would ever get done. And, you know, it's just, they'd all be like wandering off on rabbit trails left and right and here. And, you know, I love having friendships with people who are direct and to the point and plan out their day, and everything is perfectly aligned, because those are people that get things done. And so we all need to learn from one another.
Yes. And one of the things that I want to get into with you next around this topic is that you've been very intentional about setting the business up so that it does not depend on you to run. You recognize you're the idea person and that you were not the implementer, and Araceli is the implementer, and you have other implementers on the team. And because of that, you have been able to be away from the business. You've done a 4-week vacation. You've done multiple trips. You just reached out to me after recognizing we had been out of touch for a while, and because there was some email, we were missing each other's emails. And it's real clear to me where we left off in our relationship is you were trying to explore what's next for you. Now that this business doesn't need me, I need to figure out what's next and what I'm passionate about. And you've been out there, you've been doing other things, and you've been having an impact in the world. And so I really want you to speak to that figuring out process and now the impact that you're having.
Yeah, I think first of all, how did I get out of the business? Well, I got out of the business, or at least having to be involved day to day. And I think it's so critical not just to say, yeah, I trust you, and then also step back in and second guess and micromanage. And so I have a tremendous leadership group. Araceli is our vice president of operations. Kelly does sales and customer experience. Jessica also does customer experience. And then now I have a general manager named Kevin, and he runs everything. And, you know, he is so great because he takes on that responsibility part. So I'm never worried about somebody calling and saying, hey, there's a flat tire on it, you know. So that's been very freeing for me to still look at the KPIs, still look at the numbers on a regular basis, still come up with ideas and step in and help from time to time, but not to be responsible for the day-to-day, because I'm not very good at it, frankly. And so I'm glad that our leadership team is there and able to support and grow everybody else. What I've been doing is, I remember we had a conversation about this, and you said, well, it's kind of like when you go to college and you don't know what you want to major in, just take some classes and find out what you like. So I've been doing that. I've been talking to people. I've been networking. I've been doing some business mentoring here in Kansas City, which I absolutely love. But one of the things that I'm really passionate about, and I've been doing this for about 4 years, is working with an organization called Partners Worldwide. And Partners Worldwide supports entrepreneurship in developing countries. So they partner business people from the US and Canada and with organizations in the developing world that encourage entrepreneurship, like microfinance organizations and business training and things like that. So I work a lot in El Salvador and other parts of Central America. I'm able to travel down there in a normal year, 3 to 4 times a year, and I love it. And so my first 4-week vacation, though, was amazing. It actually turned into 2 4-week vacations because we were going to do this transatlantic cruise from Orlando to Spain with my 2 younger boys. And the crane fell on the ship or something. So we got a credit back, and then we got future cruise credit. And then Ashlyn and I, when she just graduated from college and she got tremendous amount of scholarships and some great opportunities. So I said, let's do this other cruise. And so we cruised from London all the way through the Baltic. We visited Russia, we visited Finland, Sweden, and all those countries up there in the Baltic, and then spent some time in London. And it was just amazing. And, never once did anybody ever call me and say, hey, this person quit, or there was a flat tire, or, whatever. I mean, I didn't have to worry about that because I trust my people. I've put processes in place. I put systems in place through the help of my people. I didn't do it on my own. They really have done it. And it's just been amazing. We use something called Traction, the entrepreneur operating system, and they meet on a weekly basis and they talk about the quarterly rocks and the data and their KPIs. And it's just been amazing to watch. And I get an email that says, here was the meeting we had this week, and here were all the issues that we discussed and solved, and here's the solutions that we're going with. And I didn't have to be there. I didn't have to be a part of that. I do join on a quarterly calls. So I had quarterly meetings, which I do enjoy doing. But one of the reasons we chose Traction was because it's based on there's 2 leaders in an organization, oftentimes, a successful organization. There's a visionary and an integrator. And the reason I chose Traction was because it said the visionary has no rocks that they're responsible for. And I said, that's perfect. So as a visionary, I can step in and I can stir things up. And then eventually they say, oh, thank you for those great ideas. Go back and do your things. And, we'll call you if we need you. And I love that.
You get to be in your strength. It really, I don't know, you probably haven't listened to recent episodes of the podcast. I know you listened to Linda Staff's episodes.
Which was amazing.
Yes, she did a great job. It was a great topic. I talked about us implementing Traction on the Tap the Potential team, and we're doing the EOS. And one of my big freeing moments has been to just acknowledge, I don't want that integrator seat. I had been in it halfway and not enjoying it. I really like the visionary a lot more. And it's been, for me, when we had a team member step up and give the hell yes, I want this role. I will enjoy doing this. In the back of my head, I thought, really? Somebody really wants to take this off of me? How could somebody have this much fun with this role? But that's the first sign that that's not my strength.
Well, that goes back to what we were talking about before. There are people, and that's what I think exactly what you just said. I think that was what was surprising to me, is that there are people, my wife is actually one of them. So why it took me so long to figure this out. There are people who love making lists of things to do, and they get so much joy in accomplishing those things. And I think that is not my thing, but I love the fact that there are people that do that because it makes me feel less guilty to delegate those things to those people because I know that they're getting fulfillment and joy out of it. And so what would be draining to me is extremely uplifting to them because they're different. And it's not always, all differences do not break down along racial or even political backgrounds, even nationalities. There's a tremendous amount of difference between each and every one of us. Even if we had this, my 4 kids are all completely different. My oldest 2 are extremely intellectual and love just doing work and studying, and they were upset that school was out. And then, my son, he's like, I don't even necessarily know if I want to go to college. I just want to work. I want to work with my hands. I want to work in a trade. And I mean, we're the same family. And we're different. We're wired differently. And I think that is so critically important. And if we started to realize some of these things, I think a lot of the barriers that we've put up between us as a culture would go away.
I totally agree. And I'm having a lot of these conversations right now. It's very present in my mind because I'm teaching leadership boot camp. And that's where we teach the people map. And the people map is all about, there's 4 personality types. It's a 4-quadrant model. And people are different and they have different communication styles. And in order for us to be successful, we need to be able to integrate the strengths of all 4 types into our personality. It doesn't mean we have to do them. So for those of us, you're not tasky. I am more tasky. I like my list and I like getting things done, just not necessarily all the things in the business. So, but to appreciate that we all come into a team or into a family with different strengths. And when we can utilize the strengths of those around us to work together to get things done, it breaks down those barriers where differences feel like they can be isolating. Now, all of a sudden, we celebrate the differences and we recognize that the differences make us stronger overall.
Absolutely.
And the culture piece comes in too, because I believe that with social media, I think you used the word confirmation bias. It's a big concern psychologically. And so I want to take a moment here and do a little teaching about confirmation bias as a psychologist. So our tendency is to notice and seek out information that affirms our worldview. And the problem that we have with social media is that it presents us with the algorithms are designed to keep us engaged. And so if we are presented with material and content that affirms our worldview, captures our interest, we will click and we will stay there longer. We will stay engaged. So when we're on social media, the algorithms are pushing things at us that confirm our worldview. And this is how we get into situations I've had multiple conversations with multiple people, and I don't understand how someone who is so well educated, who seems very worldly in their worldview, can believe that this is true. Well, that's happening because of the algorithms in social media. So we need to be very intentional about seeking out different perspectives, different opinions, getting out of our bubbles, so to speak. And so when you're traveling, you're going to different countries, you're intentionally bringing different cultures into your business, that breaks down those bubbles that we can get into, and it allows us to see things from a much broader perspective.
Yeah, I would strongly encourage any listeners are out there, whatever social media platforms you use, make sure at least 20% of the content that is coming up before you is stuff that makes you cringe. It's something where if I have intentionally gone out and found people whose political viewpoints I disagree with, whose basic thoughts on COVID I disagree with, it's really critical to have some input coming in, and we can design our own feeds. People think that they just log on to Twitter or they log on to Facebook and that they're just getting the stuff that Facebook and Twitter gives them. But we can actually design what gets put into our minds. And if we're only getting stuff that we agree with and we say, yes, that's right, then we're missing a tremendous amount of what's out there. And so, it still doesn't mean that I always necessarily agree with that person, but it at least helps me understand why people think the way they think and kind of perspective and the background that they've gone through to get that. It's also, by the way, a reason that I really enjoy LinkedIn, because I get a lot of content on LinkedIn and people are not as opinionated maybe on LinkedIn. And so you get a little bit more curated content. You get people's a little bit more reasonable content. So that's something I do enjoy.
So those are really good pointers, and I appreciate you sharing that with us. One of the other pieces that I would like for you to share more about is you have perspective on COVID in third world developing countries. And that's something that I don't know that we're kind of are focused on ourselves when we're suffering. And there's a lot of suffering going on in the United States right now. It's very easy to just kind of focus on what we're dealing with. And you have some bigger perspective. I want to give you the opportunity here to share what you're observing and what you're aware of.
Yeah, and it's in third world countries. There's a little bit of breakdown of experience here in the US between people who have to still leave their house and go out to work. Even my employees that work at the Maids. And one of our struggles is virtual school. So we have a lot of employees who've had to step back from working because they need to help their kids through virtual school. So what you bring up about the third world is really critical because in a lot of developing countries, people don't have savings. They can't sit at home and do Zoom calls because they may not have the internet. They may not have electricity, so they need to go out into public to sell. And a lot of countries are just shutting down. They've got the police or the army in the streets. They're letting people go out, one day a week to go to the grocery store. And that's really a challenge. And I read somewhere that especially in Central America, the economic impact is probably going to take decades to recover from. And it's really scary. And I think it'll be a lot quicker for the US and Europe and China, some of the more developed countries, but some of the developing countries are the poorest of the poor are really getting hurt by this thing.
Yes, it's a huge setback. And like you said, it's not just for the year, it's decades, generational impact.
It is.
And I want to circle back to what you said earlier, is that even in the United States, and so clearly your business, your team members have been impacted by COVID, and you've had to be creative and adaptive in dealing with that. So what are some of the ways that you guys have dealt with that when you have a team who can't work because they have kids at home?
Yeah, it's a challenge. First of all, for safety purposes, we really did some smart things at the beginning, I think, that are really paying dividends. We had our teams start on staggered start times. So they come to the office and the 4 people that are supposed to go out on that team that day, they interact with one another, but they're not interacting with the rest of the team. So that gave us a lot of kind of isolating things so that if there was any kind of outbreak, it didn't affect our entire business. Another thing is just, we wrote a letter to our customers and we said, look, we have always prided ourselves on being flexible because we want to help you as much as possible and we want to be as flexible as possible. But we wanted you to know that it was important to us that we give our people the opportunity to take care of their kids and help them school. It's part of our values. It's really important that they're actually home. And there's some good things I think that will come out of this, that some of the hold that just is like, here, school, you take care of my kids while I go off. A little bit of that is getting broken and people are actually having opportunities to spend time with their kids. So we've tried to be flexible. We've tried to allow people to maybe take a couple of days off a week. We've tried to be flexible, with our customers, but we've had to make some operational changes and it has been challenging. And the other thing to remember is this too shall pass. We've been through a lot. We've been in business since 2003 and there's been ups and downs. And so part of it is just looking out to the future and knowing that it's not always going to be the same way.
Yeah, that bigger picture perspective is really important in remembering that this is an event. It's difficult and it's challenging and it will get better with time. It'll be different.
And that's really interesting because by me being out of the business to some extent, it keeps me out of that whirlwind. And I think sometimes I can come in and bring a little bit of that to the team and say, it's going to be okay. And I think that every owner needs that to some extent. You need some space to think and to bring things into perspective. And it's kind of like around this election, right? Everything is crazy. You go on Twitter, you go on the news and you see all the political ads and everything's crazy. And it's hard just to get some perspective from that. And what'll be interesting is in like 3 weeks, hopefully, everything will be calmed down. We'll know who the next president is and people will go back and they'll look at this time and they'll say, wow, we should have seen that, whatever that might be. And sometimes that happens with business too.
It absolutely does. We business owners need to be able to step out and have that perspective, because when we're in the fray with everyone else, there's no one providing that perspective for the team.
The 4-week vacation is a perfect example of that.
Yeah. And just the fact that the business can run without you is such a huge eye opener, because we will insert ourselves in ways in the business that actually make it worse, having good intentions, but it actually makes things worse. So just by way of kind of bringing our conversation to a close, because we've hit on some very important topics here, John, and I so appreciate your willingness to come and share your experience with us. You did something so well, and you did it with grace, and it was just kind of like, of course we would do this. And that was when COVID started up. You made some pivots and some changes, and you sent a letter to your customers, and you called out a core value, an immutable law of flexibility. And you said, we want to serve you in a flexible way. And it's important to us to be flexible with our team and to do things that are supporting life. So, it's that value of work supports life. You put the changes that you had to make, you put them in the context of the values, because you have intentionally attracted clients and customers who are right for the sweet spot of the business, who have similar immutable laws. They are receptive to that kind of messaging, and they could hear that. And it makes it easier when we have to make these changes in our business, if we can communicate from the perspective of values. These are our immutable laws. These are our values. We honor this for you, and we need some support from you, and so that we can honor this with our team during this time.
Yeah, well, and it was amazing because we got a tremendous response from people saying, you're doing the right thing. Let us know if there's anything we can do to help you. And of course, these are our best customers that are reaching out. They're the pumpkins, right? I mean, they're the A customers. And because we have A customers, they helped us take care of our A employees. Absolutely.
Yes. So for those of you who are curious how to get your hands on the How to Hire the Best book, you can go to howtohirethebest.com, and we will have a lot in that book about developing your culture, about how you grow your team, and just setting your business up so that it's sustainable. And John, I just want to acknowledge you, because you have a sustainable business. It survived you being away from the business. It's surviving COVID. And you've set the business up in a way that it's life enhancing for your team. So I just celebrate that for you, and I acknowledge that. So thank you for being here and sharing.
And thank you for having me. It was a great conversation.
If your business is taking over your life and you're ready to take your life back, Tap the Potential's Better Business, Better Life program could be just what you're looking for. By the end of your first year in our program, you will have more time for what matters to you and more money in your bank account than ever. Get started. Take our assessment at tapthepotential.com/assessment. Thank you for spending time with us today. Join our conversation in the Profit by Design podcast Facebook group. Share your thoughts on today's episode, ask us questions, and let us know what you want to hear about next. Visit our website at profitbydesignpodcast.com to access resources from our sponsors and tools we've created for you. Subscribe to the show on whatever platform you're listening to right now. There's a subscribe button right there. Go ahead and hit it so that you always get a notification when we release a new episode. And finally, share our podcast with a friend if you know a friend who would enjoy it. Thanks again for listening. This is real life business. Keep your chin up, keep moving forward. You got this.